Hello, my name is Keith, and these are my stamps. This is episode 23, the Austro-Hungarian Empire's post offices in the Ottoman Turkish Empire and the Austro-Hungarian military posts. I think that was a bit of a mouthful. Well, wait for it. We are in Central and Eastern Europe. The Austro-Hungarian Empire is present-day Austria Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, parts of Poland, Ukraine, Romania, Italy, Serbia, and Montenegro. At the time, 1910, the population was just over 51 million, which is more or less the present-day populations of Texas and New York State combined, or a little less than that of England currently. It was 621,500 square kilometres, which is about 240,000 square miles, which is roughly 90% the size of Texas. The official name of the empire was, get ready for it, the kingdoms and lands represented in the Imperial Council and the lands of the Crown of St. Stephen and the Kingdom of Croatia and Slavonia. Luckily, they didn't call it that all of the time. Basically, the kingdoms and lands represented in the Imperial Council, they were often called Cisleitania, meaning this side of the Leiter River, and more or less Austria. So that's the pink part on this map. The green part, which is the land of the Crown of St. Stephen and the Kingdom of Croatia and Slavonia, is the Hungarian part, and that was known as Transleitania, that side of the Leiter River. So it was this side and that side of the Leiter River. In international affairs, that great long name was shortened, first of all, to the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, and often it was just referred to as Austria, which, of course, Hungary didn't like very much. There were separate stamps issued for Cisleitania, the pink part of this map, and Transleitania, the Hungarian part, the green part of this map, and those stamps I'll look at when I look at the episodes for Austria and Hungary. You'll notice that Austria alphabetically should come before Austria-Hungarian Empire. However, the history means it makes a lot more sense to do this one first. So in this episode, I'm just looking at the Austro-Hungarian post offices in the Ottoman Turkish Empire and the Austro-Hungarian military posts. I tried to keep the history simple and whilst retaining any kind of important information, but it is complicated, so apologies in advance for any blunders that I make. In the 1500s, the Habsburg Empire were involved in the Kingdom of Hungary, but the Ottoman expansion across there limited their territory. By 1718, all the former territories of the Hungarian kingdom were ceded to the Habsburgs. In 1804, the Habsburg Empire became known as the Austrian Empire. And in 1848, there was a Hungarian Revolution which was crushed by that Austrian Empire. In the 1860s, there were various defeats for Austria, including the loss of Lombardy Venetia in 1866, which led to a compromise, or the need for a compromise, with Hungary. And that led in 1867 to Franz Joseph I becoming the Emperor of Austria and the King of Hungary. Hence that great long title I mentioned earlier. Then there followed all kinds of battles, treaties, conferences, all aimed at who was going to have supremacy in that area. Germany was involved, Italy, Austria-Hungary, Serbia, Russia, the Ottoman Empire, particularly in the Balkans, France, Britain. All kinds of nations were involved at the time. In 1877, Russia, with the help of Romania and Greece, defeated the Ottoman Empire to create the Greater Bulgaria. Britain and Austria-Hungary did not like this. Britain, because they perceived it as a threat to the Suez Canal, Austria Hungary because they wanted more influence than Russia in the area. So the following year, 1878, there was the Congress of Berlin, and they decided that there would be no Greater Bulgaria, that Serbia, Montenegro, and Romania would become independent countries. And Austria occupied but didn't annex Bosnia-Herzegovina. Extremely complicated time, lots of treaties, there were lots of jockeying for position, who was going to be in charge of what. Austria-Hungary at the time allied with Italy and Britain against Russia and France for that area. In 1908, Austria-Hungary finally did annex Bosnia-Herzegovina. Meanwhile, the succession was a bit of a problem because Franz Joseph's brother, Maximilian, who at the time was the Emperor of Mexico, was executed in 1867. Franz Joseph's only son, Rudolf, killed himself at the age of 30 in a suicide pact with his 17-year-old mistress in 1889. Franz Joseph's younger brother, Karl Ludwig, died of typhoid in 1896, and Franz Joseph's wife, who was also his cousin, Elizabeth, was assassinated in Geneva in 1898, which left his youngest brother's son, so that's Karl Ludwig's son, Franz Ferdinand, as the heir to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. By the way, if you like moustaches, then these are some people to look up. They've all got some rather fabulous hair on their faces. The annexation of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which I mentioned earlier in 1908, led to a diplomatic row between Austria-Hungary and Russia, and this divided Europe and it ignited resistance against Austria-Hungary in Bosnia-Herzegovina and across the Balkan area, which led in 1914 to Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie travelling to Sarajevo in Bosnia-Herzegovina, where they were due to open the new premises of the State Museum. However, they were assassinated. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, who they blamed in part for this, and within 4 weeks, World War I had begun. In 1916, Emperor Franz Joseph died at the age of 86 and was succeeded by his brother Karl Ludwig, so his younger brother's grandson Charles, also known as Karl. At the end of World War I, the Austrian-Hungary Empire was finished. So this led to the Kingdom of Hungary, the First Austrian Republic, the First Czechoslovak Republic, the Second Polish Republic, and the Kingdom of the Croats, Serbs, and Slovenes. They all became countries, and some ex-Austria-Hungary territory was awarded to the kingdoms of Romania and Italy. There's quite a lot of information to do with the stamp issuing history and the currencies for these two entities, the post offices in the Ottoman Empire and the military or field posts. For the post offices in the Ottoman Empire, there were three main regions: the Lombardy and Venezia area in Italy, the Turkish areas, including Salonika, Smyrna, Constantinople, and Durazzo, which is present-day Durrës in Albania, and Crete. And you can see there they were issued with different currencies. The post offices began in 1748 and continued, although the final stamps were issued in 1908, the post offices remained open until 1914, when the Ottoman Empire entered the war against Austria-Hungary in October of that year. For the military and field posts, the general issues were for Serbia and Montenegro, although there were one or two individual issues for each of those countries in 1916 and 1917, respectively. And now for the stamps. First up, the stamps from the post offices in the Ottoman Empire. These four are from the Lombardia and Venetia region in that currency, and they are from 1867 with a portrait of Franz Joseph. These are from post offices in the Turkish part, which at the time included areas of Greece and Albania. The top and middle row are from 1890, at the bottom 1903. And again, it's Franz Joseph, this time looking the other way. Now, for the military posts, these are issues for Bosnia-Herzegovina, the coat of arms. The two at the top, from 1879, they have the denomination at the top. The lower stamp there has the denomination at the bottom and is from 1900. 1906, the views of places in Bosnia-Herzegovina. There are lots of different perforations and shade varieties. You'll notice there that the 6 hella on the second row is, well, the browns are different, but rather more obviously, one is imperforate and the other one is perforate. And you'll notice again the difference between that 6 hella on the right and the 25 hella, the blue one directly beneath it, the different perforations. And pretty much all of the stamps have both of those different types of perforations, as well as more than that. Notice the 10, the red one in the bottom left, that one will be appearing later. This also from 1906, technically part of the landscapes issue, although it's a picture of Franz Joseph again. And this style became pretty much the norm for portraits. The face of the leader with the different kind of borders in a square stamp. The 1910 issue for the 80th birthday of Franz Joseph, it's the landscape series that we saw earlier, but this time with the inscribed dates at the bottom, so his birth year of 1830 and his 80th birthday year of 1910. Here he is again in 1912. Now, however, the stamps are not just inscribed Bosnia-Herzegovina, they have KUK military post written on there. The KUK is short for Kaiserlich und Königlich, which means imperial and royal. So this is the imperial and royal military post. And it's a similar portrait, just a different border. And of course, in the third row, he's looking directly to the left rather than is that called a 3/4 portrait? The one I said to look out for, it'll be coming back. Here it is. This was the 1906 landscape issue. It's now been overprinted and surcharged in 1914. It was a war charity issue, so there were 2 hella extra to pay. Another charity issue, this one on the 1916 portrait issue of Franz Joseph. The writing says the Widows and Orphans Week, and there was a 2 hella surcharge for the War Widows Fund, and this was, as it says on there, released in 1917. This set was also in 1917, and it was the anniversary of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand and Sophie in Sarajevo, and there was also a 2 hella surcharge on it in order to raise money to build a memorial church in Sarajevo, which is shown on the 10 hella stamp there. And here we have the successor to Franz Joseph, Charles, and you'll notice, of course, that very similar portrait in the middle of the square with a different kind of border. This was from 1917. Now we have the general issues, which were for Serbia and Montenegro. This is the Bosnian issue of 1912, overprinted with KUK Veldpost, which means field post. So this was 1915, this was released. Also in 1915, they actually inscribed it with KUK Veldpost. And here is Franz Joseph looking out with a different border again. The general issue from 1917 of Emperor Charles. I've put the Bosnian one on the left there to show you there are some differences. Of course, it doesn't have the name Bosnia-Herzegovina at the top, but when you are sorting, it's sometimes easy to miss that kind of detail. The other things to look out for, the numerals in the general issue are in the color, whereas the numerals for Bosnia-Herzegovina are in white. Romania, the issues for the military post or the field post in Romania, same portrait again of Charles here. This is 1917, but now we have the Romanian currency of Bani overprinted at the bottom. And then they've left a space for both the denomination and the name of the currency in the white tablets there at the bottom for 1918. And these are the last stamps I have from the Austria Hungarian military post. So, my name is Keith, and these are my stamps. Goodbye.